Editing Dave here. Yes, I'm in the same location, but I just wanted to do a quick preface before the going into the video itself, because I don't want to scare people when people see the time of the video. Yes, it is just over 20 minutes long. However, and we do find out some real world information in it. However, make sure you watch it. It's coming from a real point of view with a real failure in the video that you're going to see. And when I say failure, it's not failure by any means. What I mean by failure is that I thought I was doing something wrong. I then did a little bit of research, what literally took me 2 minutes to figure out. And you'll see in the closing of the video what I was doing wrong. And you'll get to see the software. And then what I'm going to do at another point is I'm actually going to break out my own wireless and I'm going to explain why this actually happened. It's Dave from Flash and Dance, DJ and production services. Hope everybody's doing good. So, the reason why I'm out here and the reason why I say good morning is because it is let's see, it is 8:30 in the morning here in Massachusetts, where I'm based out of, but that doesn't mean when you're watching this, it's good morning. It could be afternoon, it could be the middle of the night, early in the morning, doesn't matter. So anyway, I bid you a good day. So with that being said, I am going to talk about something that I wish when I was younger, I would have taken more time to learn, knew about, and also not just that the company itself had this product out and they were the only ones who had videos. You hear about it, especially once you get involved with bigger type events. And what I'm talking about is RF coordination. This is something big that Ben Stowe from NLFX Pro, he talks about a lot, especially in some of his seminars. Me and him have had some deep dives on the topic. He deals with football, doing all that RF coordination. That's a big, big thing that happens. Now, keep in mind, when I talk about RF coordination, I'm talking about wireless mics, IEMs, otherwise known as in-ear monitors, anything that has to do in your rig. And when I say rig, I'm talking about whether it be DJ, bands, doesn't matter. So first thing is you have to ensure what frequency band you're using. If you're still using stuff that's in the old 500 megahertz band, you have to be very, very careful with it. Some of it either A, is highly illegal to use, or B, secondarily, you could be stepping on another frequency. I remember back in the day when I first started getting into wireless mics that I would be at a venue sometimes and I used to have UHF systems and never have an issue with them. And then when I did, I was able to just flip a switch and I could change it from, say, frequency 3 to frequency 5 and things would be fine. Then VHF became the standard everybody went to for the longest time. And you had a couple of frequencies within your unit, A, B, C, D, and channel 1, 2, or 3. And for the most part, you were fine until the FCC opened up the spectrum a little bit and sold some of it off. And then after a short time, when they said that these units were now going to become illegal, and they really did. I remember hearing and reading stories because back in the day when I first started doing band and production work, one of the guys I worked with, who was my boss, he recommended to get a subscription to PLSN, which is Pro Stage Lighting News, I believe it is. And then the other one was FOH Magazine, which stands for Front of House Magazine. And both of these give you a lot of insight. And inside of the front of house, they were talking about, they were doing a shootout for wireless mics from, I think there was 10 different manufacturers that they had used for this. And they had even talked about a couple of cheaper brands in there. And then one of the main articles was about RF coordination. And that's when I started learning a lot about stuff. And in the article, they were talking about the American Idol tour that was going on at the time. And this is when products were becoming illegal. And apparently, for that, because American Idol was already on tour when this was happening, if I remember right, they had to get somewhere between 50 to 75 variances for each city that they were going into. Now, think about that for a second. You're talking American Idol, number one, who has money. Number two, you're talking 10, 15 artists. So you're talking at least that many handhelds. Then you talk about instruments. You're talking about a half dozen at least, because you're talking about maybe 2 packs per guitar player, bass player, and such. And then all those were on IEMs as well. So now you're talking, let's say there's 15 members in the band, so you're talking 15 for that, and you got, say, 8 vocalists. So now 15 plus 8, how many do you have? So now when you add it all up, you're getting up 75, 80 RF things going on. So now let's dig into what this is all about. This is all about, I saw a post on Facebook through DJ Dashering, one of the groups I belong to, and I tried finding it this morning to get a little bit more information. I even messaged the guy his name is Ben. He said, I believe he was having either dropouts or his microphones were cutting in and out, which is almost the same thing, but to a degree, it's a little bit different. It is a little technical, which I'm not getting into on this. But anyway, what I'm referring to is there's a product out there called Shure Wireless Workbench, and everybody thinks, oh, it only works with Shure products. No, I'm actually going to show you a hands-on use today of what it does. Now, the caveat to this is you need to have a wireless network, and a lot of DJs don't want to do this because they're not using external mixers or they're doing everything internally. Fine, perfectly well, good. You can use this software, but the problem is you're going to scan at home, and wherever your venue is, you might go to, for example, I'm near Boston. If I work inside Boston or just outside Boston, it's very, very crowded on the frequency spectrum, especially where we have a half dozen TV stations and radio stations. Now, if I don't have a private network with a router, I can't get a bigger gap of seeing what's around me, because you're only going to use your internal antenna on your computer that you're using, whatever laptop, whether it be Mac or PC. Now, keep in mind, it works on both. Now, here is the big positive. You do a wireless network, you can now have more capability within your rig or your system that you're using. Now, for me, in real world, I use the Shure SLX D4. I have 2 units that have RJ45 jacks on the back, and a lot of people will know that Audio-Technica, Sennheiser, and Shure all have those on their higher end. Anything that's like $1,000 model or more typically have that. Don't quote me on that. There could be some models out there that are in the $500-$600 range that do have it, but here's the caveat with that. When you're dealing with lower end models like the the SLX D4 like I have, you don't get telemetry information. What that means is that you can use the software. Now, when you see big concerts, they actually have what's called an RF coordinator. Whether they're out at front of house or they're on side stage, that's another ball of wax. But what they're doing is, as the show, so during the day, once they get their, whatever their racks are, they might have 4 or 5 racks. And in that rack system, they've got, typically on the high-end tours right now, they're using Shure Accient, or they're using the Shure Sennheiser digital. And on those higher-end systems, they can use this wireless workbench from Shure, and they coordinate and they scan. And a lot of times, here's the cool thing. Every time you scan frequencies, if you have it set to talk to Shure, the manufacturer, you can actually send details to them. And I have it set that way. So as soon as I do a scan at a venue, I come home, I boot up the software, and I'm on my home network. because I'm on the internet, it will send that out. So now it updates into the Shure mapping system. So Shure actually has maps on their website, and you can go through version 7 now, and you can actually see the map, the RF map throughout the world. And you basically put in where you are located ahead of time. So say you're using some sort of like Shure BLX unit that it doesn't have networking in it. You can scan when you're at your event, or you could check at home and see what frequency spectrums are working, and you can verify your microphone. So that's one thing that's great about using this map or using the software, is you can verify things ahead of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show real world application. So I'm at the place I'm at does have a it's not a public network. So that's the other caveat I wanted to make sure. Don't use your venue's Wi-Fi. The reason behind this is because you could have security cameras, you could have POS systems, and you don't know if you're actually connected to their public thing, private site, or whatever it is. You don't know what else is on that network. And another thing that people do that I'm not a fan of is they shut their wireless units off. And I get that. If you're in a bigger environment where you've got 14, 15 wireless units, yes, shut them off. But if you're only running 2 wireless mics and you have them on a frequency that seems to be working all the time, don't shut them off. Let them live, because what'll happen is the software will pick them up, and they will actually show you in the software, because you're going to use the frequency that's based off that unit, that where it lives inside the frequency spectrum. And what I will do too is I will find a picture from Saturday night, and I will insert it as well at some point in the video, so you can see the scan that I did before the show. I actually scanned before a comedy show, and I actually it showed me where my 2, one was in red, one was in blue, and it showed me where they lived inside of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera towards my MacBook, and I'm going to show you, and I'm going to talk about, while the software is booting, because it does take a little bit to boot. While it boots, I'm going to talk about antennas. Okay, I want to make sure that you guys can see my hand too. So, all right, so as you can see, I have all kinds of different software. So right here, Wireless Workbench alias, which is just a shortcut on Mac. So yes, I am using Mac. So now let's talk about antennas. So you get antennas that come with the units, and what happens is those are just standard, either quarter wave or half wave. I believe they are. And when I say it takes a while for it to boot, this is what happened. This comes up fast because it's not really working, doing anything. So as you can see, I have a couple of different ones. So this was a trunk or treat I did. This was in case we were doing New Year's Eve. I sometimes do the Berkeley Lights On Festival. I didn't do that one. I ended up using it instead for the Sonnet one that I did. Lokai was a Chinese restaurant I did with a Toby Keith tribute. And this one was the comedy show I just did. That one, I think everything's there, but I'm not sure. We'll go into it in a minute. So anyway, so as you can see on here, and I'll go back into the antennas in a second, it's saying connected to Wi-Fi over my wireless adapter, and it gives you the IP address. Now, if you're on a network and you've got wireless units that are on there, it'll tell you if they're connected or not. Now, here's a little caveat too. When you go to do this, your cable that you could use, when you first connect, it takes a minute or two for the software to recognize that you have the units on the network. If for some reason it keeps saying detected devices 0, even after like 15 minutes or so of being connected to them, here's the thing. Your cable, even though you might have put it through a tester, for example, I have the Moat, which is the mother of all testers from NLFX, say the cable comes up good on that, but it might not be able to talk back and forth between the computer through the router to the bases that you're using. So make sure your cable's good. That's the first one. I will also shoot another video at some point. I will break out my SLXD, and I will show you real world of everything that's built into it. I have the Phoenix or Phoenix, however you want to pronounce it. I'm going to pronounce it Phoenix. the Fenix Pro PAS 225 wireless antenna distribution with a 50-foot coax cable and 25 coax, plus the two 9-foot cables it comes with. And so far, I haven't had to take them off. Frequency band 5. You have up to 15 different strengths, and that's the other caveat we'll talk about too at some point, when probably in that video, about the strength that you want to use for your RF signal. So now, as far as antennas go, the factory ones are fine, but you got to remember something. They only go a certain distance. They're not going to give you pretty much over, like, say 25, 30 feet, in my opinion. That's the best you can get out of them, even in line of sight. Now, if you jump up and you go to, say, half-wave antennas, now you might get a little bit more to like 100 feet in line of sight. And then everything, remember, is going to be line of sight. Not the only units I know that can go through walls, and definitely sometimes don't have issues, is the Axient product. I heard a story or read a story about Angus Young when he first got it. They did some testing because he likes to have things the same way all the time. He's always used to the same stuff. So when they upgraded to it, they went to their first venue a couple days in advance. And apparently he was walking around the venue, and he had another person with him with a walkie-talkie. And his guitar tech was watching the wireless unit and was in coordination with the RF coordinator. And apparently wherever he went throughout the facility, they had no issues at all. And they were saying that it was jumping frequencies too. They could see it physically. So the higher you spend on money, the better your things will be. So with that being said, let's create a new one here, so that way we can see it. Let's just put it in test. So now with this, you can actually fill out this whole thing. So if you were setting it up for a rental, or you were handing this off to somebody, you could add a graphic for the show that you're doing, all those kinds of different things, the point of contact, all that. Okay, so we're just going to use test for this. So now when you press finish, it brings this up. So now what this is pretty much everything that's here. So, like, for example, Fenix is probably going to get added at some point, but, you know, we'll use a product. We're not going to use mine. But let's say you've got a couple of BLX. We'll use the BLX4, which is a standard everybody has. Now, here's a cool thing. Once you click on that, it brings up all the frequency bands that you have. So let's add a G18, and we'll add that. And let's say you've got an H8, okay? Because most DJs out there have 2 units, okay? So now, if you notice, it actually tells you what frequency it's on both of those, the megahertz range. It tells you what band it's on, and it tells you where you have it set right now, okay? And that's where it comes from the factory. So now, say you want to go in and you are at the venue and you're like, oh, I'm going to just check real quick. So you've got your inventory now. And if you can see, you got all different things here. So even under the Axient, you can put the chargers on the network, the antenna distribution. If you have intercom, there's a thing called ShowLink. They have some of that. They have even spectrum analyzers that can go on there as well. So there's all kinds of different things. So now, as you can see, I don't have any scan sources. However, we want to check and see what's going on. So what you can do, so what I do, so I actually go like this. I make this bigger. So now, if you have active units that are there, it goes here. So do not, I highly recommend this, do not adjust any of this. Any of these things that are here, unless you do a little bit more digging and learn about the software, I would not recommend it. So as you can see, it says 330 megahertz up to 2000 megahertz. So that's what it's going to scan. It's centering around 1015 megahertz, and then the span is between the 30 and the 2000 is 1970 as far as that. So what it's saying is that it's seeing right now in this area where I am, that it's seeing TV frequencies here in the 30 hertz range. They're saying it's, so that's so somewhere around those. and then just over the 500 megahertz is what it's seeing. So now if you hit analyze, there's nothing here because there's no units, no nothing, okay? So now, because there's nothing here, okay, so that's one of the things that happens is there's no devices that are there for scan sources, okay, which doesn't mean anything, and this is the part of it that gets me sometimes, gets me weirded out about this, is that you can't always do that. And this is something, and I wanted to show how even me, as the kind of person I am, I get frustrated by it. Now, we're going to try something real quick. We're going to hit don't save. And I'm going to open up the comedy show from the other day, okay? It only has that one in there, which is fine, okay? Now, here's the thing. I can take this, okay, and I can use this as my scan source, okay? It's not online, and that's the reason why it's not really letting me do what I want to do right now. So what I will do is insert it, and what we will do is we will revise this. Hey everyone, it's Dave from Flash and Dance again. A little part 2 to this video, just so you know. As you saw towards the end of that video, when I was working within Wireless Workbench, I put in the BLX4, and I thought I was doing something wrong. Nope, apparently I wasn't. So apparently doing a little bit of digging, which took me a couple minutes, unless you have units that work on the network, they're active, apparently that's where the scanning comes from. So as you can see, even me trying to learn something, even I learned something new. And I always say, and I say this in my private life as well as, you know, business or whatever, I always say, if you don't learn one thing new a day, you're not living. And it's not, I don't mean really living, just if you're not learning one thing a day, how are you expanding your life? How are you expanding your mind? I always say a sitting still mind is a non-functioning mind. And I don't mean that literally, it just means that you're not growing, you're not expanding, you're not learning more stuff. So with that being said, I'm going to close the video out, and when it warms up a little bit, because I am in the Northeast of Massachusetts, I will have my wireless set up. We will go through it. I will explain what's in the rack, why I chose the products I have, and we will go from there. So let's have a good day. Treat others how you want to be treated, and keep that energy up.